So there's a lot of conditioning that we carry within us. I often think we're kind of born into this world knowing a certain amount, and yet we don't know anything at all. And so we look to the people around us to kind of almost understand who am I, and how do I need to function, on that basics of what do I need to do here in order to be okay. And so as we sort of move through life, there are certain things that we're told as we're growing up, either from the family unit, from friends, from teachers, from culture, from society. There's certain concepts and ideas that are sort of fed to us, and we take them on because they look like they make sense. We kind of see people around us, and it's like, well, that's how we're supposed to do life, because that's how the people around us are doing life. And so we kind of pick up these ideas of who we are and how we are meant to be. And a lot of it is to do with a very sort of basic survival, so that I'll be okay in this, so that I belong, all those kind of very basic drivers. And at one point in time, they serve a function, but it's just what I notice is we don't, unless we are consciously doing it, often as we're growing up through life, we're not realizing that I've got belief systems that I had when I was 5 years old or 7 years old that are still running even when I'm 30, 40, and so I'm a different person now than I was when I was 10 years old. Or so it seems. There are some kind of deeper drivers that still, or beliefs about who I am. So if I was to make this a little bit more concrete, if I think of, to give an example of people that I've worked with, so a single thought along the lines of, I don't belong, can be connected up to another single thought, I'm not good enough. So, and it really might be one moment in a person's life. It really might just be simply
when
one
you were
moment.
5 years old.
5 years old, 3 years old, where something happens that seems to teach you. This is a kind of a misunderstanding that we take on. One thing might happen that we then look at the concept, like the circumstances that we're in, and we might decide, I don't belong. And that's quite a painful idea to take on as a truth. So then we look for, well, what's the reason? And somebody might then go, because I'm not good enough. So then you have these two completely separate, to go back to the mental map, two completely separate roads on the map suddenly meet, and then somebody is carrying that belief, and it becomes very deeply buried unconsciously through life. And it's, if you actually hang around that and stick with that belief of like, I don't belong because I'm not good enough, it's if you hold it as a truth, it's uncomfortable. It starts to feel like a costume that's really, really too tight. And if you really hang around it for too long, it starts to become quite painful. And then what we then do is add on more kind of thinking to the thinking to try and get ourselves out of that trap that we found ourselves in the beginning. So that's when somebody might actually use a lot of force to kind of go, I'm going to disprove my own theory. I'm going to disprove this thinking that I made up in the first place. But if I become hugely, hugely successful, then that's proof that I belong.
Yeah.
And so, and I've worked with people who, this is the kind of game that they've played with themselves over the course of life. So then they become hugely successful, and they then have a world around them which is kind of, they're receiving lots of praise, lots of adulation, a lot of attention, and it kind of does look like they have disproved their own theory, but because they've still got this thinking of I don't belong because I'm not good enough running alongside of I clearly am good enough and I do belong and I'm a leader and everyone loves me, they then, because those two things, it's almost like two maps overlaid. So then the experience for that person is, well, I might be hugely successful, but I'm not very happy. or I don't feel fulfilled, or I can't really believe or feel this attention or love or praise, or it starts to have, again, they find themselves in pain again, because it's as long as that story over here is still running as a truth for them, it doesn't matter how much success you achieve or how much wealth or
an A-list celebrity at the top of your game and still feel that same feelings.
And so, and I have had people coming to me who've been hugely successful, and this is the kind of story that I've heard. I actually did have somebody once say to me, I can't feel my life, because they'd become so numb. And they said, I have a wonderful life. I have, everything that on paper everybody kind of dreams about.
Carry on watching at actors-anonymous.com.